Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. This is me Nazir Ahmad from Pakistan. If you are new here, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and press the bell icon button so that you may not miss any upcoming video. Today we will learn types of reviewer comments and appropriate response written by David A. Cook. 1 and 2. He has affiliation with Mayo Clinic Online Learning USA and Mayo Clinic College of Medicine USA. Number 1. Recognition of poor writing or omission. Example: the sentence which is difficult to understand as I could not tell how many repetitions each student performed. Discussion and explanation. The reviewer is right, always. Even if you think it was clearly written, the reviewer had a hard time understanding. You might question his or her intelligence for not being able to understand your writing, but the reviewer is probably smarter and investing more effort than most other readers. Response: clarify this area of ambiguity in the manuscript. Number 2. Identification of an error or limitation. Example: there appears to be an inconsistency between the data reported in the main text and in Table 2, for example. The investigators used the t-test, but the Wilcoxon ranked some test would have been more appropriate. There are several other studies addressing this question, including work by author. This should be cited in the introduction. The claim that the results apply to practicing physicians is not justified because it extrapolates beyond the data. Discussion and explanation. The reviewer might be correct or incorrect about the issue. If he or she is incorrect, the mistake often arises because of an omission or ambiguity in your writing. Response: first, double check your work, then seriously consider, is the reviewer correct? If you believe the reviewer is wrong, did his or her error arise because of ambiguous writing? If so, fix it. It helps to be humble and take as much responsibility as possible. If the reviewer is correct, fix or address the error. Tactfully explain your rationale for change or no change in the response letter. We neglected to report that we verified the assumption for the use of parametric tests such as the t-test. We have clarified this point in the methods and continue to use the same statistical test. Number 3, suggestion to elaborate on or trim a theme. Example: it would be good for the authors to elaborate on the finding something. In discussing this point, the authors may wish to draw in the work by author. Note: this suggestion is less forceful than the error quoted above. The authors spend too much time talking about something which is only tangentially related to this topic. This should be deleted. Discussion and explanation. It is essential to distinguish errors which must be fixed from suggested elaborations or deletions which are optional. Errors affect the rigor or correctness of the methods, reporting, or interpretations, whereas elaborations affect only the scope and completeness of the inferences, and implications. If you don't make a given elaboration, the paper will still be just as rigorous and correct, although it might be incomplete. There is never enough room to say everything one would like to say. This applies to both ideas originating from the authors and those arising from the reviewers. Just because something is interesting or true or relevant does not mean it has to be said in this manuscript. You, as the author, must make tough choices about what is essential. Criticism about the appropriateness of the conceptual framework or research question should be addressed as possible errors. Response: for suggested elaborations, seriously consider, is the message strengthened if you follow this advice? Or conversely, does the suggestion confuse the issue, dilute, dilute the message, or open you to criticism? Based on this, decide whether to incorporate or defer the suggestion. If you opt to incorporate a suggested elaboration, it is often appropriate to keep it short. If you choose not to make a change, defend your decision by stating something like, this is an excellent suggestion and we agree with the reviewer. However, due to space constraints, we are not able to address this point fully. For suggested deletions, it is usually appropriate to trim text, although perhaps not as aggressively as the reviewer advises. Editor suggestions to trim overall length, such as to achieve a specific word limit, should always be followed, but you can exercise discretion in what text to trim. Number 4, opinion without suggestion. Example, it is an interesting to note that this issue arises in the work on cognitive load theory as well. I disagree with the interpretation of finding something. A suggestion to change is implied. I found it particularly fascinating that these authors identified something. Discussion and explanation. If a reviewer discusses a topic without suggesting and any changes, that is expressing platitudes, opinions, and prior knowledge, then strictly speak, no response is required. However, sometimes such narratives contain a partially obscured suggestion that should be addressed, even if no suggestion is requested or implied. The topic may be worth discussing. Response: first, carefully consider, is a specific suggestion hidden in this opinion? If yes, then respond accordingly. If no, then treat this as a suggested elaboration above or complement below. Number 5, complement. Example: this is an important question and a very timely study. The randomized design adds rigor, discussion, and explanation. Compliments do not require a specific response and can be ignored or addressed at your discretion. Response: acknowledge this graciously and without elaboration in the response letter. If there are a lot of compliments, I usually just start off by saying we received a number of favorable comments and do not comment on these, and then ignore them.